What's the most horrifying thing that you found out about either a boyfriend or your
I was dating this guy and he was studying to be a sign language interpreter, and I thought that it was so cool, and he was like really active in the deaf community, and there was so many things, and I was like, wow, so amazing. And then he told me that the only reason that he ended up learning sign language was because he really wanted to sleep with this deaf girl that he met at the college that we went to. So he started learning and then slept with her, and then he said that he really only liked sleeping with deaf girls because of the noises that they made and because they sounded
our word.
And then he just really didn't like sleeping with people who were hearing anymore because it wasn't the same for him. And he told this to me, who was hearing, while we were dating.
What's the most horrifying thing that you found out about either a boyfriend?
So back when I was single, I used to have a really bad habit of finding out all the dirty secrets about a guy before I would even start dating, thus ruining the relationship before I even gave it a chance, right? So I find a new guy. I'm like, you know what? I'm going to do something different. I'm not going to find out anything about you. I'm just going to play it by ear and let the universe show me who you are as it happens. So I meet him at a club, we're having fun. He keeps getting me free drinks because he works security. We do that a couple times. We're dating, we're having fun. We're getting to know each other, whatever. He hits me up. He's like, hey, I think it's time. Let's go on a wine retreat to Malibu. I'm going to drive us out there. We can get a little schwasty. It's going to be great. It's going to be great fun. I decide, sure. But before I go, I do a little bit of research because I want to, make sure that he's not a killer. He killed someone in a DUI 3 years earlier. He's not even supposed to be out of prison yet.
What's the most horrifying thing that you found out about either a boyfriend or your husband?
Okay, this guy I used to talk to, we were telling each other about when we lost our virginities. And he had told me that he lost his virginity when he was like 8. And I was like, to another 8-year-old? And he was like, no, to my babysitter, we used to have sex. I was like, honey, you were molested, you were raped. And he was like, no, we used to have, we had sex, like, she was cool with, like, I was cool. No. I was like, how long did that go on? He was like, oh, until my mom came in and we were both naked in her bed and my mom drug her out of the house and whooped her ass and she had to move out of town. And he still today thinks it's funny. He thought it was funny, like he was laughing, like, yeah, I used to fuck her. No.
What's the most horrifying thing that you found out about either a boyfriend or your husband?
A year after graduating from high school, I went to a concert, and I, at the concert, saw that I had 10 missed calls from my high school ex-boyfriend. Thank you for that input. My high school ex-boyfriend that I had dated the entirety of freshman year, and I'm like, why do I have 10 missed calls from him? And I found out about a week or two later while I was at work that he had stabbed someone to death with his brother that night.
Allegedly.
Was I an alibi?
What's the most horrifying thing that you found out about either a boyfriend or...
It's my time to shine, and this is disgusting. So, a little bit of a trigger warning here. It's pretty brutal. So, I was with this abusive piece of shit when I was 19 years old. Abusive in every way that you could possibly imagine. It was disgusting. So, I lived like 4 hours away from home at the time, and I lived with him. One day, he was in the shower, and I decided to go through his phone, because I did that back then, because I was 19 years old. He had one of those apps that was disguised as something different, but then you'd open it up and you'd have to put in a password, and there was locked media. By the way, he made the password my name. I got into the app, and what I saw was photos of girls between the ages of probably 10 and 13. I'm sick to my stomach just reliving this, but they were in bikinis, lingerie, posed on beds. And I'm gonna put a part 2 to this because it's even more fucked up.
What's the most horrifying thing that you found out about either a boyfriend or your husband?
I was with my ex for about 6 months at this time, and he had bought in a baby snake and it had died, and he put it in his closet. And I was like, why did you put it in your closet? And he was like, oh, that's where I keep all of my pets when they die, and just slept with dead pets in his closet. They were like rodents and snakes and tarantulas, but still. He then went on to tell me that he had a fascination with like writing a book about his deepest fantasies. These included like torturing people to death and like these crazy scenarios. I also then found out that he was a fan of making weapons, and he eventually ended up like shooting me in the back of the neck with a blow dart one time, yeah. But then I found out that his biggest fantasy was to murder someone and then throw them in the river behind his house. And then after we broke up, he was like, hey, you should come to the river with me.
What's the most horrifying thing that you found out about either a boyfriend or your husband?
The most horrifying thing that I have learned about my wife, Nicole, is that she sleep talks, but not normal sleep talks. It'll be the dead middle of the night, and I'll wake up to, hello? Yeah, I see you. Hello? Yeah, I see you. I see you. Why are you there? Hello? Hello? Yeah, I see, and up there too, I see. What are you doing up there? Why are you up there? Hello? So yeah, that's really fun.
Stitch this. What's the most horrifying thing that you found out about either a boy?
Ignore how puffy my face is, but this story's gonna get progressively worse. So we had met at Home Depot, and we had started talking. We had started dating, and then we were dating for a couple months, and then he told me I hadn't ever been over to his house, and he was like, "Hey, just letting you know before you come over to my house, so the guy I live with has a lot of Nazi stuff," and I was like, okay. And then he was like, oh yeah, I'm really into collecting Nazi stuff, and I do Nazi war reenactments, but as Nazis. And he was like, but don't worry, I'm not a Nazi, because if I was, I wouldn't date you. And then then he told me he was trying to become a police officer, and it did not, it ended very quickly.
What's the most horrifying thing that you found out about either a boyfriend?
This is something I've heard from almost every guy that I've ever been close to, and they all have stories where they've slept with girls and don't even remember it happening, or they talk about how a girl was all over them and then obviously they couldn't push them off because they didn't want to hit them or anything like that. So yeah, I feel like a lot of guys get sexually assaulted, and the crazy thing is that they don't even realize that it's sexual assault, at all. Legitimate stories where they were I was asleep and then I just woke up and this girl was on top of me, having sex with me. And they're obviously uncomfortable talking about it. You know what I mean? But they would never in their head call it sexual assault. But it is so common. It happens to guys too. And the crazy thing is that they don't even realize that that's what's happening, and it's really fucked up and awful.
What's the most horrifying thing that you found out about either a boyfriend?
Oh my god. Okay, so this was an entanglement. It wasn't a boyfriend. I feel like that's important. So he was playing 2K or something, and he pulls out I think it's Coffee Mate or whatever, coffee creamer. Basically, he pulls out coffee creamer and he drinks it straight out the bottle. And I'm like, are you drinking, is that coffee creamer? And he's like, yeah, it's like milk. He said, yeah, it's like milk. Oh my God. He said, yeah, it's like milk. I'm like, coffee creamer? Bro, after that, his opinion on anything meant zero to me. That was the beginning of the end. I stopped talking to him a month later.
What's the most horrifying thing that you found out about either a boyfriend?
So it is 5 o'clock in the morning and I'm about to clock into work, but this is too good not to share right now. My ex-boyfriend was in the military and he got hazed pretty badly, and he hated his LPO, the person that was in charge of him. And at one point he confessed to me that he had seriously considered following the LPO home so that he could find out where he lived and then jump him before he went into work, beat him senseless so that he wouldn't come into work and he wouldn't have to deal with him for at least a couple of weeks. He also confessed to me that he thought about just sitting outside of his house with a sniper and waiting for him to just walk outside and you know. Another time we were following behind a car that didn't use their blinker to turn, and he informed me that he wanted to follow the car home, torture the driver into always making sure to remember to use his turn signal. And after that, I noticed a lot of other disturbing stuff that leads me to believe that he's going to be a serial killer.
What's the most horrifying thing that you found out about either a boyfriend or your husband?
Alright, so I dated this guy one time, and I was taking a picture on his phone, and the bottom right corner I saw, like, you know, the recent picture, and it was like a banana and something dark, and I was just like curious, so I clicked on it. I should have never clicked on that. Yeah, so there were multiple pictures of a banana up his butt. And like, you know, if you're curious, you're curious. That's okay. I'm not shaming you, whatever. But like, why all the pictures?
What's the most horrifying thing that you found out about either a boyfriend or your husband?
So there's this one guy that I was seeing that was in the Marines. And he told me that he was going to vote for Trump. When I asked him why, he said it's because Trump is going to start a war with China, and so he'll get to slay more bodies.
What's the most horrifying thing that you found out about either a boyfriend or...
One time I was dating a guy, and he messaged me about how he wanted to like bake with me because I mentioned that I liked baking. And I went over to his place, and he was talking about how he can never get the brownies that he makes to ever be like as good as the ones in the store. And I was like, oh, like maybe the recipe is wrong. And I kind of started baking with him, and then realized that he didn't know you had to put flour in baked goods. So this whole time he'd been like making recipes like brownies and cookies and pancakes with no flour, and basically just eating hardened, burnt pieces of sugar and butter, and then being okay with it and never questioning why that was.
Stitch this. What's the most horrifying thing that you found out about...
Last year I was a bartender, and I met this man who was 13 years older than me, and we hooked up for the first time, and I saw he had a giant tattoo across his entire ass that said ass man. And if that wasn't scarring enough, I later found out that he murdered his roommate. It's not funny, I'm in therapy.
What's the most horrifying thing that you found out about either a boyfriend or your husband?
Okay, so before me and my ex got together, he had this best friend that he had, and they had kissed, and it caused him and his ex and her ex to break up. He told me about it, and I really appreciated it, him being like honest and everything, but I was like, I don't really feel comfortable with you guys hanging out, if you can understand that. I was like 18, I was really self-conscious. Well, eventually me and his family moved from California to Nevada, and the girl had gotten married, and I was like, cool, it's all done, it's over, I'm not even scared anymore. Well, he got a Snapchat from her one night, and I was like, that's weird, and I just had a gut feeling, so I went through his phone. He'd been cheating on me with her while she was on her honeymoon in Tahoe, and she was pregnant. Woohoo!
What's the most horrifying thing that you found out about either a boyfriend or your...
One time I was helping an old boyfriend do his laundry, so I took off his fitted sheet on his mattress, and there was like this gigantic, like old looking, like brownish reddish stain on like almost like 80% of the mattress, and I was like, dude, like what's up with this giant stain? We've been sleeping on this mattress, like what is this? And he's like, oh yeah, like great story. This mattress, my mom gave birth to me on it.
Since my mom's a Jew and my dad's not a Jew, that makes me Jewish.
That feeling you get when your best buddy puts his hand on your thigh, and you feel your pecker head scrape against the zipper of your favorite pair of ripped jeans. Your butthole puckers. That's the feeling of driving a Ford truck. Ford. No girl girls allowed.